Hello and welcome to the first edition of Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle for 2022. We've got a couple of games to talk about, a couple to look forward to, and hopefully some more than we're currently anticipating to start 2022. But there's, as always, plenty of talking points across the NBL for us to discuss. We'll have a special guest and looking forward to catching up with Rob Beveridge once again. Thanks to Hoop 7 for making it possible. I'm Chris Pike. Happy New Year to everybody. But the man you've tuned in to hear from, the legend himself, the has-been, but the six-time NBL champion, Damian Martin. Happy New Year from our Flush News studios. Welcome to 2022.
Look, he's saying Flush News Studios tongue-in-cheek because as we record this, we are sitting in Chris Pike's, what do we got here? Nissan something. It's in a strong breeze. This will blow off the road. We're sitting in the front seats.
To be honest, I had to borrow Laura's car because her car was more of an office-friendly setup.
So anybody in Morley right now, we're sitting at a park with the studio set up in the front seat in a bit of shade. So, yeah, one of the more random places we will come to you with the show, but looking forward to it. Bring on 2022, plenty of basketball. And with games getting delayed left, right and centre in the NBL, it means you have time to tune into the NBA and vice versa.
Absolutely.
But as you said, a couple of good games we've already had in the NBL, and Bevo, who I'm looking forward to always catching up with him, and he's always going to give us a black and white analysis. He will tell the truth at all times, and
he
won't hold back, that's for sure.
And he might have some extra time on his hands at the moment too, so he's got plenty of time to give to us. Now, what this kind of reminds me of, Damo, I don't know if you've got kids listening, maybe just switch off for the next minute. But when you're younger and you've got a girl that you like, and you live at home with your parents, you don't always get a lot of privacy at home, so the car becomes a pretty convenient spot. So you try to find a place like this, maybe not during the middle of the day like this, but, you know, it brings back some memories of that to me. That's what this kind of reminds me of, and let's hope that we don't go down that path, Damo. But
we're getting a glimpse into Pike's past as a teenager.
Maybe it's just me. Maybe I was the only one that had to be creative with the spots you'd find, but plenty of adventures in cars, and now we've created it into a podcast studio, so very, very, very convenient.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Yes, normally where we conduct this is in an office space that I'm a part of. But unfortunately, today I'm in between appointments, and Pike has made himself available to meet me.
Well, Damo, first of all, before we talk basketball, how did you bring in 2022?
We were at a friend of ours.
Well, you talked about the party you were meant to have.
Yeah, we ended up going. We went. So I think the rules were no dancing allowed. Yes. I think our kids broke that, the 2 to 5 year old group.
Unless somebody got married. Did anyone get married?
Well, I am a celebrant, so if all else fails, I'll just pronounce someone husband and wife. No, the kids had a great old time. There's 4 families, sorry. So a friend of mine who's got a lot to do with the Wanneroo Wolfpack in the NBL 1 West, and then Greg Hire, his family. Jesse Wagstaff's obviously on the road, but his wife, Steph, and the kids came over, and then my wife and 2 little ones were there as well. So it's just a great night. 4 close families. Kids were in the theatre singing and dancing and playing and just having...
Well, they weren't dancing, were
No
they?
dancing, sorry, as 2 to 5 year olds will do. And then the adults were out the back having a bit of fun. So great way to bring in the new year alongside some good mates. Yourself?
Well, we had a game on Friday night on New Year's Eve, so I was pretty stuck with that. So by the time I was finished covering that, it was the Wildcats game against the Taipans, and by the time I was done with that, I was ready to go and sit on the couch, and I don't even know if I made it to midnight, to be honest. So not that thrilling, but we had an NBL game to talk about, and we've got to make the most of them right now because we don't get a lot of them. We've got 2 of them to talk about on this show, but before we get to it, plenty happening in the NBA. And Josh Giddey made history early this week. The youngest player in NBA history to score a triple-double. We saw a glimpse of what he could do last season at the 36ers, but to do it in the NBA, it's pretty special when he's only just turned 19 years of age.
It's amazing, and I know there was a few social media posts put up about it, but I hope everyone truly grasps just how incredible this is. The NBA has had a star-studded, names on that list, but he is the youngest, and it's fitting that he's the youngest in the NBL to ever do it.
Yep.
Now he's the youngest in the NBA, and in both cases, I believe he's
passed the LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo Ball. So the NBL really is showing there can be a great platform to go from your first experience in the pros and catapult you into the NBA and a similar style of play. And he's just going from good to great. And considering his age, he's still got 7 or 8 years until he's coming into his prime years.
Absolutely.
So it's just amazing what Josh Giddey's doing. I think every Australian basketball fan is over the moon, happy for him, and we'll consider to see more triple doubles now that he's had a double recently.
Yep.
And points weren't even included.
That's right.
It was rebounds and assists.
Yep.
So I think we knew it was only a matter of time before he got his first triple double.
On the other side of things, Brad Newley, remarkable story. You came up with Newls, and you obviously won a world championship with him. You played against him for a lot of years. You played with him for the Boomers for a lot of years. He just got traded this week from the LA Lakers to the New York Knicks. A remarkable story.
I don't know where to go with this because he got drafted by the Houston Rockets, I believe. 15 odd years ago. They owned his rights. They obviously traded to the Lakers at some stage. Why they've come about trading his NBA rights, who knows? But it's good fun. It shows you just how well Brad's always been a quality player, but in particular when he did get drafted, the Houston Rockets genuinely believed he'd be in a Rockets jersey at some stage. And these days, I believe he would have been in the NBA. Back then, there was maybe only Andrew Bogut, the only Australian. Right. But things have changed slightly, style of play, more international players in the league. And had Brad done what he was doing 15 years ago today, he would have been in the NBA. And with all accounts, in a Knicks jersey. So, no, it's good fun. And Brad is actually my wife's cousin. So going back, we were actually in Lithuania representing the Boomers, and I was chatting on Facebook to this girl called Brittany Morgan, and I turned to Brad and said, "Oh, Brad, you're a mutual friend on Facebook with a girl who I think is quite cute." And he said, "Who's that?" And I said, "Oh, Brittany Morgan." And he said, "Why do you ask?" And he got serious all of a sudden. I'd known Brad about 10 years at this point. And I said, "Oh, well, what's going on? I think she's cute. Why are you upset?" And he goes, "That's my cousin." So turns out I'm not even the best basketballer in the family. Brittany played professionally with the Lynx, and Brad's obviously a dual Olympian.
And of course you were single at this point, Damo.
Yes, of course. No, I was definitely single at that point. So that's how the story of Brittany and I got started, unlike a car at a park by C. Pike. And then the other news, great seeing some NBL guys. We spoke about them last week.
Well, yeah, exactly. Not only are they getting a chance, guys like Keifer Sykes and Cam Oliver and Scotty Hopson, but as we're recording this, Keifer Sykes this morning last time I checked, he had already hit five 3-pointers the game that was played just this morning.
Look, he can flat out shoot the ball, he can flat out score. It is awesome. I think it's just showing you the bridge between, or the gap between the NBL and NBA. If you are a skillful, dominant player in the NBL, it probably shows you can play in the NBA.
Sure.
Sykes was just that. He was great. Hobson, anyone who hasn't listened to it, go back and there's a clip of when the commentator was talking about Scotty Hobson's journey to get to the NBA. He'd been in and out twice, been to 6 different countries, I want to say. Just a brilliant story of a guy who never gave up and is now getting to be in an NBA team. Just remarkable, the journey he's been on. And Cam Oliver, I mean, he was brilliant in the NBL that first season in particular. That 1-2 combo with Scotty Machado, and now he's doing it on the biggest stage, in the highest league of basketball. I just love it. It's just great seeing guys that you've played against or watched in the NBL, not only being on NBA rosters, but out there and showcasing they deserve to be there.
Yeah, I love the story of Cam Oliver because he was ready to just about give up when he came out to the Taipans. He had a really rough injury run the last 2 years. He thought the NBA was beyond him. Coming out to Cairns was his last chance. He was going to give it one more crack, and then he was just about ready to give up, and now look where he is now. So it's a fantastic story. We've got 2 games in the NBL to talk about. One of them was on New Year's Eve. It was up in Cairns. When we spoke last week about this game, we talked a lot about what Tajima called his role would be in this game, who he would try to guard, how he would have to run the point for the Taipans, how he would have to score their most points. Then on shoot-around, he slips on the floor at the convention centre, hurts his knee, doesn't play. What was your reaction when you heard that?
To be honest, I thought blowout coming up. I thought Bryce and Vic, without McCall guarding one of them, is going to go for 30 plus. And instead, it was New Year's Eve. Like I said, I was with Greg Hire and Jesse Wagstaff's wife. We're sitting on the couch watching this game, and before you knew it, the Wildcats are down 23-5. Could not believe it. Without McCall, without Machado, no Jarek, just mind-boggling.
It was.
The Taipans were amazing.
It wasn't just the scoreline either. I don't know if I've seen the Wildcats look so flustered. The Taipans defense took them completely out of it. I mean, we saw turnovers. It wasn't the fact that they were so much shooting badly. They weren't getting shots off. They were turning the ball over. I mean, Bryce had his shot. There was a layup that he had blocked by Majuk Deng. There was another air ball that he chucked up. I haven't seen, especially from Bryce, but the whole team looked so flustered in that first probably 7 or 8 minutes.
I'd say in years gone by, back when I was lacing up the boots, Cairns have done that a few times. They've jumped us out of the blocks. They've caused that frustration. And I don't know why it is, but I would say that mentality or the mindset, whatever it is when you head up to the far north, you never want to disrespect Cairns. And maybe the McCall getting ruled out on game day I'm not saying they went in there thinking, okay, it's going to be easy. No one ever thinks that, but yeah, it would.
It's a subconscious thing though that you naturally do.
Everyone's human, and when the opposition's best two players are ruled out, there could have been that little sense there. But credit to Bryce in particular.
But how do you describe what Bryce did? Because he had a really bad first quarter. And then he scores 19 points and hits 4 threes in the second.
It was just an incredible quarter of basketball to watch. One of those individual performances, you remember where you were when you watched it. Jermaine Beal dropping 40 on Melbourne. I remember that game. Yep. Bryce going for 19 in a quarter. That pullback, step back, whatever you want to call it, is 3. I mean, he's just a brilliant player. And when the team needed him most up in the north of Queensland, he put on a show to behold and be remembered for a long time. 29 points between the second and third quarters. Enough to not only get him in the game, but build a slight lead, and they managed to hold on. But credit to Dang, 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 steals. He was the Taipans' best player and just brilliant from start to stop. One
of those funny games where I think both teams kind of came out of it feeling like they got a lot out of it. If you're the Taipans, you're never happy to lose, but given I think you can make a case that Machado, Jerick, and McCall are probably their 3 most important players, especially with what Moko can do as a shooter, and they're probably their 1, 2, and 3 starters. So the fact that they played so well and went so close, I think Adam Ford wouldn't have been too disappointed with what he got out of it. And from the Wildcats' point of view, you're just relieved that you got the win after starting so badly.
Yeah, and because there's been a long gap between games, obviously they're supposed to play Adelaide. That's been delayed again. They would have watched that first quarter. So the day after the game, we've won, well done, but we cannot allow this because we may not be as fortunate to have Bryce go for 19 in the second quarter. So they would have watched that, that start they had. But then there would have been like, all right, guys, that's the bad. Tomorrow there's some positives to take out of this game. And there were plenty of positives because guys had to step up when it mattered. Majuk again. I know I talk about him each time. He's big time, just winning extra possessions. Obviously, Law finishes with 17. Travers gets some huge blocks, big plays. I know he had the 10 points, but he's bread and butter was at that defensive end. Fraser, 9. He got the start. We'll see if he maintains that starting position, in particular when Todd Blanchfield comes back. It was great to see Mitch Norton get some minutes under his belt. So there were positives.
And Hodgson as well.
Hodgson got his first minutes, so plenty of positives. Jesse continued his form. But, I think, as you said, both clubs will go the positives outweighed the negatives. But unfortunately for Fordy and his men, they started very well but couldn't continue on.
I want to get your thoughts on Bull Kowal. He's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's probably not a point guard genuinely, but he has to be a point guard right now because of the situation they're in. So you were a point guard. What do you learn, firstly, from being a starting point guard on a team like that, but then also he was given the job on Bryce Cotton for most of the game. What does a guy in his first season as a pro learn from playing on Bryce for 4 quarters?
Oh, a massive amount. One, you now know what the speed is and the skill set is to guard the best in the league. So whether that's a positive or a negative, or whether he's gone, you know what, I can't actually keep up with this guy, but I've got to be careful of opening up too much to send him left, because then he's going to get a laneway and he can pull back going right. Like, he would have learned so much despite the amount of points that Bryce went for, despite the fact that it was in a loss. He's a better player for it because he was out there playing against Bryce, against Law, against these guys who've had experience. And then on the flip side, to control the team at the point guard position, in particular when it's not, hey, I'll kick the ball ahead to Machado to get him in on-ball situation. Machado's not out there. Okay, I'll run a staggered screen, pin downs for Jerick to get him, going right, left, footwork on the three-point line. No, he's not out there. So you actually have to think, am I just going to get us into the flow, into offensive structure, or run specific plays? I thought he was great. I thought he really handled himself out there, both controlling the game at the offensive end and getting it after it defensively. And despite the loss, to put together 13 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and not look out of place whatsoever, playing big minutes, it was a huge upside, not only for the Taipans, but for him as an individual going to back himself going forward.
Then New Year's Day, we saw the Tasmania JackJumpers hosting Melbourne United. JackJumpers started well. I think they were 10 points up early in the second quarter, but Melbourne overwhelmed them in the end just with too much talent and too much firepower, really. What did you make of this game? And again, I feel like it's a game where both teams took a bit out of it. Melbourne relieved that they got the win that they would have expected, but Tasmania, especially defensively, to hold that Melbourne team to 76, I think would have been reasonably happy, especially with the size disadvantage they had there. Already the smallest team in the league, but they didn't have Will Magnay either. Yeah, the size did hurt them. The rebounds, you just would need to get more possessions to be able to stay in a game against a star-studded Melbourne United. Look, Adams was the standout for me. He just seemed way more aggressive from the start. I'm going to get on the ring. I'm either going to get layups, dunks, or get sent to the free throw line. And then when he got a bit of rhythm, all right, I'll start dropping threes now if you go under a screen. So I thought he was spectacular, the best player on the court for either team. So he's doing that now, the last couple of games. He's He's pocketed his 3-ball until he's feeling good. Does Josh Magette now have to do the same? Because some of those 3-point shots he's taking are pretty average.
Yeah, 4 of 21 from the field and deep and early in the clock. I can understand it if, it's a late shot clock situation or the ball's been reversed a few times, you're open. But, yeah, there might be a few where Scott Roth is going to ask him, hey, was this the right time and place?
Well, let's be honest. How relieved are you as the defense when he's taking those shots?
Well, to be honest, you're not relieved because he's not a non-shooter shooting them. I remember when Bryce went, 14 consecutive misses from behind the arc. Yep. Every time he shot the ball from behind the arc, I guarantee the person guarding going, oh, no, that's on me. Sure. Because you just expect it to go in. Now, Magette is a renowned shooter, and he's got a good technique. So this 4 of 21, I know he's in a bit of a shooting slump right now. It's back-to-back games. But when he's open and he lets it rip, the defender is still thinking, oh no, I bet I've contested that, or it's going to show up on film. So he'll come out of it. But right now, you want to find other ways to have a bigger impact on the game, especially as an import, and especially on a team that's going to give you so many opportunities to score. He's not an import on Melbourne United. He's not an import for other teams where there's 4 or 5 scorers. He and Adams have to be the leading scorers.
They have to be. Yeah.
Game in, game out. Maybe Magna will step up. Clint Steiner gets hot. But they're the two. And right now, there was Adams, but not enough from Magette. But if he's getting 21 looks, you take away a handful of those, get him in better spots, and they start to drop. If he can go, 8 or 15, that's a huge upside to, for the Jack Jumpers to have.
So those were the couple of games in round 5, Damo. Let's keep moving on to our awards for this week. Now, I'm not sure if you've had a good think about this or not, but we've got the Damo Best Defensive Award, thanks to Everlast Drinks. We'll add in the games from round 4 for this, so we'll do a combined effort from rounds 4 and 5, but I'm not sure if you've done your homework.
No, we're going to put this up online. I mean, obviously... There's a few guys that stand out with block shots, rebounds. Dellavedova, he will get some points. He's just up and in everything. Despite Adams, obviously having his way, he just never takes a possession off. But this is one I'm going to have to go back across the 2 rounds. In other words, I'm just trying to buy myself some time to go back over the other 2 games because I forgot that they're going into this week.
Someone who did do their homework was Sean Redhage.
Oh, of course he did.
The scoring machine. Thanks to Redhage Basketball. He gave his votes in the Player of the Year award. He's got quite a love affair with Bryce, let's be honest, probably like you do. So Bryce got his 5 votes again, and now Bryce has got a handy lead up on top of the leaderboard. Caleb Agata, we include his massive game from last week, I think, in that too. So he had a really good round for Melbourne United. Joe Lual-Achul as well with the 3. Josh Adams, 2 really good games. He probably could have even been higher on that list. And Majuk Deng, I want to get your thoughts on him because he's now always had this ability, but now with this Taipans team, they need him to step up as their go-to man, and he's showing that he's more than capable.
Yeah, exactly. I remember in our pre-season predictions, I put it was either going to be him or Koi I thought were going to be most improved. Deng's the one that really has stepped up, and he's not doing anything I don't think anyone ever thought he wasn't capable of doing. It's just that he's doing it more often. And so it's the same shots he was taking a year ago, but he's probably getting a few more looks, a few more dropping. He's going off the dribble. He's using that length and size. Look, he is a quality player, still finding his feet in the NBL after a serious injury, injury-plagued season. Yeah, the longer he's out there, the better he'll be. But you're seeing that he's capable of putting up big numbers, and I think eventually he'll be the go-to guy purely from a scoring sense, because Scotty Machado is their best player, but he's not necessarily their best scorer. Same as McCall, whereas I think Deng will be eventually their go-to guy when we need a bucket.
Are you surprised that the old scoring machine has Bryce so far ahead already in the Player of the Year voting?
Look, obviously Vic Law would have stolen votes in other people's minds. The reality is the Wildcats don't win that game if it's not for Bryce Cotton.
Sure.
He was incredible. Possibly, well, in Sean's mind, the best individual performance or team, reason a team won over the course of those 4 games. And
but he's the only player in double-figure voting, according to old Sean so far.
No surprise because of how the voting is done. If it was you get 20 votes and you can do it game by game, that's a different thing. But over the course of one weekend, some of the performances put on, 3 or 4 in particular, the games, it just means you're always going to get points because he is spectacular. He is the best player in the league as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
It's just that he's got another first-team All-NBL candidate next to him in Vic Law.
Absolutely. Now, before we get to Rob Beveridge, really looking forward to picking his brain. The Galen Award for this week. Damo, the best team man, named in honour of Galen Young. We've limited on options this week. Now, you never like when I do this. I think there's a standout on that list that I've given you. So out of Xavier Cooks, Jack White, Matthew Dellavedova, Sam McDaniel, Keanu Pinder, and Luke Travers, did somebody jump out at you that had a big impact on their team winning games without necessarily coming up with big numbers at the end of it?
Look, I mentioned Luke Travers. I thought he was big time in that comeback, in particular in the fourth quarter. A couple of huge blocks, back-to-back blocks, huge rebounds. Dellavedova is just always there. You know, he will never give up on any play. Jack White, I think, is a bigger version of Dellavedova. I think Delly should guide him, treat him as a younger brother and say, here's how it's done. Sam McDaniel, I like Sam. Xavier Cooks, I'm a big fan of. I think everyone knows that. Keanu was a high-energy guy, a huge reason why Cairns got away to the start they did. But I'm going to go ahead. Love you, Xavier, but I'm going to give it to Sam McDaniel. The JackJumpers just need that little bit extra, and he's providing it without the wins right now. But if you pay attention to Sam, you know, he started for Melbourne on a championship year, and people questioned it at times. But I think that the pickup that Scott and the team at Tassie have done, you know, he just that big, strong body, never gives up, doesn't mind guarding 1 through 3, and just seems to be doing a little bit of everything to help his teammates. In particular, first to pick him up off the floor, going for extra rebounds, boxing out. So I know you've got to stand out, and I've got a feeling based on your reaction, it's not Sam.
It's not, but I'm very happy with it.
Okay, who's yours?
I thought Jack White, just because I thought he was instrumental in them turning that game against Tasmania by his defensive efforts and his energy levels, and it's a great story for him to come back. But Sam McDaniel, underrated for a whole year last year at Melbourne, what he did on that championship team, and he's that glue guy that's keeping everything together for Tasmania. So I'm very, very happy with that, Damo. So we'll go with Sam McDaniel on the Galen Award, and now we'll take a deep breath, and when we come back, we'll hear from Bevo. Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustling. Very excited for the second time now on this season to be joined by the master coach himself, Rob Beveridge. I know it's probably not a great honour for you to join us, but it's an honour for us to have you on our show.
And how did you spend the Christmas year? What did you do for Christmas and then bring in the new year?
Yeah, it's we end up going down to my sister-in-law's place in Canberra for the day, which was good. Yeah, it was a lovely day, and then we ended up going up to Queensland for a week to see my sister I haven't seen in a long time. But unfortunately, we had to cut it short because Jada, my eldest, and his cousins, they all got COVID. So we had to jump in the car, 10.5-hour trip back from the Gold Coast because we just had to get back home and get into isolation. So here we go again.
And how's everybody feeling? The obvious question.
Yeah, look, it's to be honest, I have zero symptoms at all. I feel 100% fine. Jaden, who's been hit the hardest, it's pretty much a flu. You know, he's got the flu. He's been in bed for a couple of days, but he's up and about today. He's watching the cricket or trying to watch the cricket. But that's what it is. I mean, people got sort of sore throats and a tight chest, but that's pretty much it. We've done our PCR test, but because of the backlog, it'll take a few days for the results to come through. But we assume that we're probably all positive with COVID. But there's nothing really that bad about it. So we've been double vaxxed. So I've been triple vaxxed. So maybe that's one of the reasons why.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that in a bad situation that it's not it could be a lot worse, but in saying that, that's a long drive home and a way to start the 2020 year. After last time we spoke, you were adamant, I know I'm going to coach in Rockingham, but I'm not doing any more isolation, any more quarantining. I feel like we jinxed you, mate. Apologies. It's all Pike's fault.
Yeah. No, so I'll be going up to 60 days now, so but I'm a veteran at it. But it's all good though. All good.
You're still going to be coaching in the New Zealand NBL for the last time this season. When are you meant to be heading over there? And their borders are now closed again. I mean, is that going to be any sort of a hurdle for you? Are you going to be able to get over there?
So yes, it is a hurdle. Like most things have been the last couple of years. I'm going over there beginning of March. So I think March 7 I'm booked to go over there. And I've been classified as a critical worker and stuff like that. Somehow, I don't know how they do it, but
they must have some low standards.
Yeah, they do, very. It's like they're pretty desperate to get me over there. But part of that is I've got to do another 7 days quarantine as well. But we're hoping that common sense will prevail. If I've got COVID now, it's a nothing for me. but I've been triple vaxxed, and just hope common sense prevails, and they do open the borders up, and we can all get on with our lives.
Mate, you did mention Canberra, and not everyone may realise this, but was it Jesse Wagstaff mum was your teacher? Is that the story?
That's right. Yep. So she was my primary school teacher, and I've known Jesse since he was a little baby, and so to this very day, still stay in touch with Barb. Barb and my mum live across the road from each other. They're very, very close friends. So I see Barb quite a lot, and we bring up the memories of when she was my primary school teacher. I think it was year 2 or year 3 or something like that.
Mate, you've got to give us an insight. Jess is obviously the current Wildcats captain. They're 5-1. They're rolling. What was he like as a kid? Was he honestly studying engineering and reading books as a 2-year-old? It wouldn't surprise me.
He has been a nerd his whole life. From the minute he was born, he was just a super smart kid, and I think that he probably wanted to go to university instead of going to primary school. But he's always been super smart. And what's he up to? 5th or 6th degree now? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things the Wildcats have been great at is if you pass educational courses outside of basketball, they'll reimburse you for the fees. And I dare say Jesse's cost the club 6 figures by now. He's got 2 more engineering degrees, an MBA. That's hell of an achievement he's got off the court whilst playing for the Cats.
And I can almost guarantee he won't use any of them.
No, his dream job is to assemble IKEA furniture. That's true. Like he actually had a company, and Bev, I'm not sure.
He might get a job at IKEA or something like that.
Yeah, he had an online company called Jassembled. It was Jesse Assembles Your Flat Packs. Yeah, wow. I think the only 2 jobs he ever had were from our old team manager, Brett Havercroft. His parents hired him twice, and Jesse felt bad taking money off them, so instead they gave him some tools. Wow, who knows? Yeah. Maybe Jesse will relaunch his website.
Yeah, well, Jesse's dad was also my woodwork teacher in year 7.
Oh, wow.
As well. So, I've known his mum and dad. They both taught me at school. So, certainly it's a small world.
It's fitting that he was a woodwork teacher. I didn't realise that, but he's just completed building a boat.
Has he?
Jesse's dad's built his own wooden boat.
Yep.
Out there on the south coast of New South Wales. So, very good. Oh, look, we'll get away from Jesse. Don't want to give him a big head. Give us your thoughts on what's
going on. What are the chances of Jesse ever listening to this show, Damo?
I like to think he tunes in weekly. G'day to Jesse. Okay. I know you're out there somewhere on the East Coast. Who knows where you're going to play or when, but hopefully COVID's going. No chance. He's got no chance he's tuning in. But Bevo, it's basketball. What do you make of everything? You've potentially got COVID right now. We've got more games delayed because of COVID, but there has been some basketball, albeit minimal, in between the last time we've spoken.
Oh, look, it's been, I'm trying to watch as much as I can, but, when you find out the day of that it gets cancelled, I wanted to go and watch, the Hawks play live and things like that. And so it's been a nightmare. But what I have seen, it's like the team, most teams, they just haven't gelled just yet. The shooting the ball, they're lower scoring games, things like that. But I think it's just because they just haven't played enough games. There's just inconsistency. You can train and shoot as much as you like, but until you actually get out there and under full pressure, it's really difficult. But right now, Perth are obviously doing exceptionally well, but they've also played most of their games at home, so they've got a little bit of stability, and I think the results show that way.
They also haven't played Melbourne, they haven't played Illawarra, they haven't played some of the top teams.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's just because of the border restrictions. Yeah. They've got no choice, but they have to play those teams, and they're probably lower ranked teams at this stage. So it's always going to be a big test. When they do the Melbournes and Southeast Melbourne, Illawarra, those types of teams. When they're playing, that'll be a true test to see where they're at.
I want you to put your coach's hat on for a couple of teams, and I want to get your thoughts on how you would handle. Firstly, the Adelaide 36ers. So they played their last game way back in, I think it was December 18, I think it was, and they were horrible against the Cairns Taipans. And now they haven't played since. They've had players, in COVID isolation. They haven't really got to spend much time on court. They were meant to play this Friday night. That won't be happening now, so they don't play again now until next Wednesday. If you were CJ Bruton, how would have you handled having such a long break and having all these interruptions when your last game was such a horrible one?
Oh, look, it gives them more time to try and reflect. But, after watching that game, that was one of the most pitiful games I've seen in a long time. Mm-hmm. Not so much from a technical perspective, but the effort was as bad as I've ever seen. They talked about Sydney Kings, I think, the week before or whatever it was, they were just as horrible. And I couldn't care less if it was COVID or any excuse. A player can control their effort levels, and if I was CJ, I would have been putting my foot up their backside big time, and being pretty hard on them, and understanding that these players are in a place of that they're role models, that they're very lucky to be a professional player. Damo, it's a great life to be a professional player, and then when it's all over, it becomes very, very difficult. But I think a lot of these players have got a sense of entitlement, and right now, the effort that they produced was terrible. So if I was CJ, I'd be pretty matter of fact with them, and play people with effort, or you're not playing.
Yeah, great point. The other one I wanted to get your thoughts on was the New Zealand Breakers. How do you now handle this situation where they're unlikely to get home at all now this season to play home games? They've lost their first 6 games of the season. They don't seem to be clicking on the court. I mean, Dan Shamir seems like a great guy. He seems to genuinely love his players, and he's doing what he can. But I mean, how do you handle the situation there?
Oh, it's one of those things. It's they're so close but so far. Mm-hmm. They've been. They've got a very, very talented team, and I can't put my finger on why they're not winning games when they've been in plenty of games to win, and then they just can't put teams away. They've blown some big leads. They went in overtime against the Hawks and stuff like that. So I think they're having a crack, but they just can't win at the moment, and winning solves all problems. I think if they just got to get on the winning list, and then things can happen after that. But it's so tough on them when they played. They're away from family, they're away from home support. Very difficult situation. So this is 2 years in a row, and I feel for the Breakers.
With the roster itself, when you look at that team, who is their stud? Everyone knows with the Wildcats, game on the line, it's going to Bryce. Yeah. Maybe even Vic now, but it's clear cut. Great roster, but it's those two guys. With New Zealand, it feels like there's a lot of similar studs at the same level, but no clear cut. Okay, this is who we're going to all in on. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, they're very guard heavy. They've got a lot of very similar players and stuff like that. But you got to have an alpha dog in the team. You've got to have great role players. But you've got to have that stud. When things go to shit, you just throw the ball to him. And I'm like you. It's like, who is it? Is it Finn Delaney? Like, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely getting better every year. But I don't know who their go-to player is when it really, really counts.
Does Finn just have to become that player? Does he have to take the bull by the horns now and just demand the ball when it matters?
Yeah, it is. It is. And when people find out, their roles in the team and who's got it, and right now they need to fix that real quick, because they do have a very talented team, but they've got to have somebody that's going to step up and give me the ball. I mean, geez, how good would it be to I would have loved to have Bryce Cotton on my teams. For him to go to the shit, here you go, give the ball to Bryce, let him go.
I know
that's what Damo did. Damo's come down the court.
I think it was more.
I'm getting rid of it.
I think it was more so the point guard at the time had to run the right place for Bryce and make him look good. But then we won't dive into that. That's okay.
Also had an almost record-setting shooting percentage one season, didn't you, Damo?
Yeah, and then Bryce came along and put the pressure on me. What is it? The longer you retired, the better you were. So I'm embracing that with two horns and running with it. Look.
Oh, exactly.
McDowell White, just the last question on the Breakers. Did you see him much as a youngster?
Yeah, I did. I through all the junior stuff, I definitely followed him, and exceptionally talented. There's no doubt. And I think this year he's been arguably the best player for the Breakers. But the thing is, he's the point guard, and he's still a facilitator. He's an amazing pass through the ball, things like that. Very, very talented, great athlete. All of those things, a big point guard, he's got a lot of things there, but, he needs to have, that scoring guard next to him that can absolutely flat out score. And that's what we're not seeing at the moment.
And when you go and watch these games, do you still find yourself watching, whether it's at home on your couch on the TV, live watching the Hawks, wherever it may be, do you still find yourself as a coach, or can you just be purely a spectator these days when you sit and watch a game?
No, 100% coach. Although I'm not coaching the NBL, obviously I've been coaching, in New Zealand. I've done stuff with the national programs, things like that. So I'm still going to be involved in a lot of those things. So I've got my coach's hat on. And I sit back and go, what is that? What is that crap? Like seriously, what are they trying to do here? And you listen to some of the coaches' timeouts, and you try and work out, well, what are you actually trying to say? And there could be 3 or 4 things, and it's all over the place. So I still 100% have my coach's hat on. It's very, very difficult to and watch. I mean, I'd like to be able to. This has come up 30 years I've been doing it. I don't know if I can't watch a game just for the sake of watching a game.
I like to picture Bevo sitting on his couch, glass of red wine, yelling at the TV. Your poor wife, Sue Ellen, walks in and out of the room. Here we go again, another 40 minutes of it.
Yeah, the only good thing is you can rewind it and you look again and you think, what was Ding Ding doing? It was comical. But anyway.
You've seen some great floppers in your time. Have you ever seen anything quite like that, Bevo?
No, never. No, never in my life. It was embarrassing. I mean, you get people that flop a lot and things like that, but that was one of the worst. It's not even a flop. It was that bad.
It made Sean and Jesse look like they held their ground pretty strongly, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, geez. I mean, I just shake my head and go, what was he thinking that, he's very famous now around the world for that, not as a player.
Whatever it takes. Hey, keeping your coach's hat on then, the Tassie JackJumpers, they seem so close to getting a few more wins. They've got 2 so far. They pushed Melbourne the whole way. You've been there early days, West Sydney Razorbacks. We transitioned into the Sydney Spirit, which is essentially a start-up. Scott Roth, 18 months he was over there before they even tipped off for their first game. Hadn't seen his wife for a long time, as we've already spoken about. You spend long periods of time on the road away from Sue Ellen and the kids. How do you think Scott's feeling right now, and how do you judge the performances to date?
Oh, look, I think Scott's doing an amazing job. They're one of the better coached teams in the league I'm seeing at the moment. He doesn't have superstar talent. He's got a whole bunch of very good role players. I think he's doing an amazing job with his systems, like his defensive systems of how he's defending. He's giving their team a chance to win with not a whole lot of talent. And I think that shows that he's a very good coach. And being away, for him to be away from his family for a long period of time, I get it. It's really, really difficult. And what got me through that type of thing is probably what Scott's doing as well. Is his team is his family. And I think he's very tight with his players. I think that's going to be what will get him through. But at the end of the day, coaching it is quite lonely at times. So it's very important that you have a very small inner circle of people that are there through the good and the bad. Because right now he's got a tough job this year. They're probably aren't going to win a whole lot of games, but they're going to be in the games. So any win they get is going to be pretty good for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Scott's fantastic as a coach. Got to know him a little bit with the one season as an assistant coach, and just a great guy on and off the court. And, mate, I know you're busy. We've got to let you go shortly. 2022, do you set new goals, New Year's resolution? What's it look like in the Beveridge household turn of a new season, new year?
Yeah. Well, I'm going back to New Zealand, and I loved it over there. I've got a tremendous group of players. The management's outstanding, and my goal is to try and win a championship over there, and then after that, it's like, okay, that could be the end of my seasonal coaching career. So I want to make sure that the next 6 months, I'm just going to have the best time with a great group of players and a great organisation. So that's what I'm doing, and then come August, I'll be moving back to Perth permanently full time, and I consider Perth home. So we're all very, very excited about coming back home to Perth and being with our friends who are our family, and I think that's probably the things that we're really excited about.
Oh, mate, we can't wait to have you back out west. I genuinely mean that. I'm excited to be able to catch up face to face, opposed to sitting next to Pikey while you're in isolation on the other side of the country. You can join us face to face. It'd be great.
Yep, can't wait, guys.
Thanks very much, Bevo. We better let you go, but we'll do it all again in a month's time and get a full preview of your New Zealand season once we do.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thanks, Bevo.
Thanks, Bevo. Okay, Damo, back on Hoop 7's basketball hustling. It was a lot of fun again, as always, talking to Bevo. Let's hope it's not the last time you get to do that. We will see where you're at next time we come back with Bevo later on in the season. But he'll be heading towards New Zealand very soon, so we look forward to catching up on how his team's shaping up over there. But great insights. I loved what he had to say about the 36ers, especially in what CJ Bruton had to do. But plenty of things to talk about before we get to the games in round 6 of the NBL, Damo. And we've seen the first import sent home. Before he even played a game,
on the court.
We never saw him for the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Devin Thomas. Now, you're an NBL player for a long time. What would it take to breach your contract multiple times, which is what the Phoenix have cited as the reason for his departure?
Oh, look, if there's one thing to breach a contract which probably has an outside influence looking negative, you upset a sponsor or you upset a member. But when you
drink alcohol, if your sponsor's alcohol,
like
think again.
Yeah, exactly right. We had a number of years with them on our front. But then there's other types of breaches where, it goes against who we stand for, our core values and our morals. Now, if those breaches have happened more than once, then, I think they've made the right decision. The reality is, if you've got a patterned behaviour that's taking away more than you're putting back into the group, and in particular when you're injured, don't get me wrong, it can be really hard mentally. He's moved abroad, playing in a different league, hasn't stepped foot on the court. Maybe it's hard to adhere to all these, rules and regulations. Yep. I actually don't know what the contract breaches were, but at the end of the day, if the team got together, and I dare say the leadership group would have been involved in the decision, if they get together with the CEO, the decision makers, and say, this is what's happened, this is our recommendation for what we should do as a punishment. What do you guys think? They've all got to be on the same page, because the club is just that. It's a club. Yep. The players are as important as the front office. Front office is important as the spectators, as the sponsors. But collaboratively, if they get together and say, yep, he's not helping us win a championship, put bums on seats, be family friendly and be good role models to the kids watching, yep, get rid of them. Unfortunately, no player is bigger than the team they're playing for.
Do any other imports spring to mind who might be feeling the pressure a little bit now, especially while these teams have got some time to think about it? This is probably the time to make a move if you do want to.
Well, it's two ways. There's always pressure on an import. There's some guys that we had that I thought, no, they know for sure that their job's secure. They have one bad game and all of a sudden they're looking over their shoulder. So that is a real thing that happens with imports.
Some of them get sacked twice during the same season.
Yeah, Jaron Johnson, that was incredible. He said yes to coming back. Just a great guy. I hope he's doing well. But Jaron, for example, he probably knew for a while, Casey Prather and I play a very similar style of game. We're at a club that is now sitting last on the ladder, that's got a 32-year streak or whatever it was at the time. So there's guys that probably see the writing on the wall, and despite how hard they try, they're just not getting the results. So you do have a handful of guys who probably think, okay, we're sitting on the bottom of the ladder, and this time of the year it's predominantly the guys at the bottom of the ladder. Am I putting enough points on the board or playing my role? How's my relationship with my teammates? So on and so forth. They'd know that. Yep. The other flip side is how the coaches are handling it, because you can lose confidence overnight. You can't lose skill overnight, but confidence can affect your skill or your perceived level of skill. And some of these guys potentially aren't having the right systems run for them, potentially are low on confidence, and that may come from how it's being handled behind closed doors. Or they've got niggling injuries they don't want to speak up about with fear of getting put on a plane. So that relationship right now with your coaches and playing group is incredibly important, because I take you back to Kevin Lish. Kevin Lish's first year with us, he thought for sure I'm getting fired.
He did.
And he had a lot of voices in his ear saying, you're going to get fired.
Yeah, and to be honest, Jack Bender probably told him that too.
Well, the voice that said you're not getting fired, you don't have to worry about a thing, was the guy we just spoke to, Rob Beveridge.
Absolutely. Yep.
Bevo said, mate, you're here for the year. I don't care if we finish dead last. While I'm head coach, you're not going anywhere. And he just instilled this confidence into Kev, who was his first year out of college. He's got the pressure of being an import. He wanted to be a team guy first.
He didn't know anyone in the whole country when he got here.
Didn't know anyone. And eventually came to, mate, we recruit you for a reason. You're better than what you think you are right now. Go and dominate. We want you to do this, this, and this. And he's gone down to be a two-time league MVP, Olympian, so on and so forth. But Kev Litch was very close to getting fired. And a lot of that was to do with what was in his head and the voices that he shouldn't have been listening to.
Now, the two that spring to mind, we spoke to Sean about this last week as well. How long do the Sydney Kings wait to get something out of RJ Hunter and Jalen Adams?
Yeah, Sydney are too good of a club with a rich history to not be in the playoffs or really right there vying for it. They got Angus Glover, who's firing at the point guard position, and then he's part of their future. So it's now, who's our future? How can we win it currently? Are we ticking both those boxes? I think the young guys are doing a pretty good job, but they still want to win this year. Do they have enough right now, or are they getting enough? potentially not. And again, until you're behind closed doors and saying, we've put you in the best position to fulfill the job, the role we gave you, if that isn't a yes on both sides, that's when you start having these discussions.
Now, after we finished recording last week, we just found out that the Taipans had signed Marshall Nelson. So we've seen a lot of him over here. I've seen a lot of him play at the Perth Redbacks in the SBL or the NBL1 competition now. I've seen him develop into a really confident player who's got great athleticism. He can get above the rim. We were talking about who could dunk last week. This guy can dunk without even trying. He's not tall. He's only 6'2".
Generous.
Yeah, he might be 6'1", but he has enormous hops. He can shoot the ball.
Great handles.
Great ball handling. So I really like him as a piece, especially when you look at the guys that the Taipans are missing with Machado and Jerick right now. So we saw him play on New Year's Eve. He got a few minutes and got a few shots up, but he's the exact type of guy who's a great example to anybody that don't give up on your dream. He'd had his one chance at the Hawks. It might have been easy to give up on it, but he had gone to Europe. He kept playing hard here locally, and now he's got another chance, and he might just make the most of it.
And because, he wasn't necessarily overlooked by the Wildcats, we were looking at him from a development point of view, DP role.
But you look at that roster and he probably doesn't have a role, does he?
And then Illawarra obviously offered him a little bit more. Went over to Illawarra, wasn't to be, but he's a capable...
I'm pretty sure it was with Bevo as coach.
Yeah, it was Bevo as coach. He is a capable player. We actually sat at the game when he played for the SBL1 West. We actually went and watched his game. And it was funny, on one side of the court, you got Marshall, all the skill in the world, right there as an NBL fringe player. On the other end of the court, we had Nick Pozoglu for Coburn, who ended up being the player of the year in the conference. Both guys, in and around the Wildcats, both went to Illawarra, and then both are out here playing NBL1 West. And because they haven't given up, they've stayed fit, they've stayed in the eyes, this might be the opportunity that Marshall has. Even when Machado returns, he might do enough in the next 5 weeks to have another club say, hey, I loved what that kid up north did.
Well, especially because
let's bring him in.
Jerick's not close to coming back. Jerick might not get back on the court at all this season.
Yeah.
So there's a spot there.
Exactly, and they might, exactly right, shift him across. Pozoglu, I think he's NBL ready. If a club gives him a 5-week chance, maybe he can do the same thing. And sometimes when you get a contract in your early 20s, you think, okay, this is how it works. I'm going to be in the NBL for the next 10 years. Sometimes being relieved of that contract and let go, that heartbreak is the fire they need lit to realise, okay, I can't take any shortcuts ever. I've got to make the most of this, and I think Marshall will, and I hope someone like a Pozoglu does as well when and if given the chance.
You know what I'm confused about? I look at that Taipans team, and there's room for another signing on top of Marshall, so this isn't against Marshall, but why would you not sign Adam Gibson to fill that Scott Machado role right now?
Yeah, good question. We had Gibbo on a couple of weeks ago.
And we will next week.
Yeah, it would surprise me if 40 didn't at least think about it. 40 is as smart a coach as there is out there. So whether he reached out to Gibbo and as a no, whether he decided it wasn't the right fit, who knows? That's a great question. I'd love to maybe try and get Adam Ford on the line. I don't know how much he'll give away, but I might have to send him a sneaky text and say, when it came down to Marshall v. A. Gibson, what made you lean one way more than the other?
Interesting. You might have heard the unfortunate phone ringing there in the background. It was another head coach, CJ Bruden, he was trying to do a ring in, Damo. So let's keep moving quickly. Now, we weren't meant to have a Friday night game. This Adelaide 36ers and Perth Wildcats game is just destined to not happen. It's meant to happen now next Wednesday night, but before that, we've got a few games to look forward to. First up, Saturday, Tasmania JackJumpers. So they're one team that hasn't had a break. So they've been playing through, so they might be in some rhythm. The Sydney Kings haven't played for a while now. What do you think of this game on Saturday?
I think I saw enough from the JackJumpers to really like their chances. Magnay back, they're a definite chance, and I think they will get the win. I think they're so close, just going from a 4-point lead to a 12 and holding on. But the Sydney Kings, this becomes do or die for them as far as I'm concerned. You just asked me about the imports. I think they've got to be at their best to help guide them to a win. And then the following night, I love our double headers coming up this week. Taipans versus Southeast Melbourne. I think the Phoenix... just going to be too big, too strong. In particular, with that size, I'll take the Phoenix to get this one. But as we saw, Cairns in Cairns,
very
can
tough.
happen.
And the Phoenix haven't played now for quite a while, so you never know if that rust can become a factor. Sunday, doubleheader. Now, this could well be the game of the season so far. The Illawarra Hawks, Melbourne United, I think we all expect them to be contending for the title and certainly finalists. Neither of them have played for a little while now. Melbourne have been able to keep the momentum going a little bit more. The Illawarra Hawks haven't played for 3 weeks, but up until then they were going very nicely with Duop Reith leading the way. What do you expect from this one?
Well, that's the matchup I'm most excited by, Duop and Jack White.
For sure.
I think the Jack White factor is what's going to be the difference here. But Illawarra in Illawarra, I'd pick them 9 times out of 10. But for some reason, I am leaning towards a huge defensive effort by Jack White. And then on the back of that, just the depth they've got still behind. Akil, he's just a scoring machine.
Yep.
Dellavedova is just a beast at both ends right now. Goulding, I worry who's going to guard Goulding, who can shut him down for 4 quarters.
And then you've got Caleb Agard.
And then I was going to say, and then you've potentially got their best player to date, or at least in the last couple of weeks. So I just think that the depth with a Jack White defensive machine on Duop is going to lean me to pick Melbourne in this one.
Do you give the Breakers then any chance against the Brisbane Bullets? And secondly, does Lamar Patterson put his team that he didn't have a great time out last season, does he put them to the sword?
Yeah, I feel bad. I want the Breakers so badly to get that first win, but I don't see it happening in Brisbane against a team whose best player or one of his better players had a bad experience against the Breakers, and he'd be out to make a point. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think the Breakers are going to go 0-7.
We'll keep going because then Monday night we've got the Phoenix back home in Melbourne against the JackJumpers.
Yeah, Southeast to take care of business at home. They haven't had many at home so far, so they'll make the most of this one. And just unfortunately, too much depth, too much talent, and we'll see them get a win.
Then Tuesday, rescheduled game. This was cancelled, I think, from Boxing Day from memory. So we've got the Taipans taking on the Bullets, the battle of the Queensland teams.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the wing matchups on this one. I know obviously Cairns are depleted with injuries, so that obviously makes me lean towards Brisbane. But Noi, Dang, I can't wait to see how they match up with the likes of a Patterson, Franks. You've got some superstar Bullet imports, both capable of being in the NBA as far as I'm concerned, versus some of the young kids into their second and third seasons with the Taipans, and I think ready to show their best basketball, and they're going to be challenged. So I think we've got some of the best import perimeter players versus the best wing players for Cairns. So I'm going to enjoy that matchup, but I'm still favouring the Bullets in this one.
Now, when we come back next week, let's hope the Wednesday night game between the 36ers and the Wildcats is still scheduled to go ahead. This is the longest awaited game in NBL history.
I don't want to jinx it. Hopefully we're talking about it, but who knows with the year we've had so far, or the season that we've had so far, they could be a month away from facing off at each other.
We'll talk about it more next week, but I really feel for Sunday Dej. I spoke to him yesterday. He was jumping out of his boots to be back on Friday night. He's been given the all clear to play. He was so excited, but in the back of your mind, or back of his mind, he knew that he spent the afternoon running around getting COVID tests with his girlfriend. He was waiting for the results. He didn't know what the results would be. He didn't know if this game on Friday night would go ahead, and it won't. So he's now got another week to prepare.
Another week for Sunday. Oh, I can't wait to see Sunday out there. What a game to return to, guarding Bryce Cotton. Our former teammates, good friends off the court. You got one of the best scorers in the league versus one of the best defenders. That in itself is a reason to put your bum on your seat, turn the TV on and watch. But yeah, another wait. They've got to wait another week and it'll be good to go.
Great ambience out here, isn't it, in this studio of ours with big trucks driving past and all sorts, Damo. Now that's it for this week here on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for your insights once again, Damo. Thanks to Hoop 7 for making it possible. Stay tuned later in the week for the Tab Touch preview where I catch up with Matty Knight. But Damo, how's 22 looking for you to wrap up with, and what would you like to put to Adam Gibson next week when we speak to him?
Yeah, to Gibbo, I know we asked him all the questions about why he's not playing. Would he like to continue to play? I want to ask him probably the questions he doesn't want to hear. Worst case scenario, doesn't go ahead. What's your job next year? Because I think he belongs in basketball. I'd love to see him as a coach. I know he's going down that route, learning a few things with the equipment in particular and the cutting up and scouting. But worst case scenario, you don't get called up. Do we hear a retirement speech? And then secondly, as far as 2022, let's see that 11th championship for the Perth Wildcats. I don't mind being biased. They're the team I want to see holding up the trophy. But every week when we go through who's going to win against other teams, it's a tough one. I think that top 5 in particular is too hard to separate.